Yeah, the panel that we're going to have right now is to make it a little bit more actionable. The title, it says People Productivity, the Essence to Making Our World a Better Place. If you've seen what's possible, then there's definitely going to be a better place. So indeed, I have David Walsh, the CFO of New Zealand Post. We have Daniel from IDC, and we have Stephan, our inspirator, on stage here. The first thing I wanted to highlight, what Stephan was talking about this morning, is this slide, just to bring it back into memory. It is about the productivity. I mean, everything has been tried. Economics have worked, and sometimes worked really well. But at some point, it started to become a different experience. And productivity, we see, is the only way out to make a better world. Now, to make it more practical, and you already talked about the adoption in the industry and what's happening here in Asia Pacific, I've created a couple of questions to let you also think about, what can I start to do tomorrow in order to get action? So I wanted to start with you, Daniel, to answer that from the perspective of your research, and then move to you, David. All right. What can you start to do tomorrow? One practical thing that you've picked up from your research that people are seeing as a low-hanging fruit?
Good question. Right. So the first thing that just comes to mind, and I'm very, very serious with this, my first question to you will be, why tomorrow? You need to start today. Tomorrow is too late. And seriously, I mean, for those of you Singaporeans here, your Prime Minister, Lee Hsien Loong, he's addressed the nation many, many times talking about productivity as being a critical thing. We want to make a better Singapore and a smart nation here. So in order to do that, you guys and everyone here really needs to, to use technology to the maximum, so that you were talking about that, and that's a critical thing. Technology actually allows us to make that big leap. So as opposed to just automating, which is something that we've been doing in the past, today really we care about making a better Singapore, essentially making better citizens, right? Something that is critical. So technology is going to be a critical thing. Now, to respond to your question directly, and what you need to do today, is to pick your battles, really. That's the most important thing. When I was talking before about all those 5 dimensions, I think that the most important thing is that you cannot just simply look at all of those and do them at the same time. Just pick your battle. Think about really where is the lowest hanging fruit in your organization. Where do you have the best capabilities to start that project? So start small, obviously, and then replicate success. And then you can grow farther.
And that's a good angle to move to you, David. What are the things that you've been doing recently or planning on the short term?
Yes, I think moving on from tomorrow, today, in fact yesterday, one of the things you picked up on was about leadership and empowerment, and that is something that we are working a lot on right now, particularly around moving our business to a customer-centric business where we're 175 years old or young in postal, 15 years young in banking, and about 20 years in parcels. Every one of those businesses is under massive disruption, and we've got to bring the customer to the fore, and most importantly, we've got to get leadership and accountability to our teams to actually know how to respond. So there's a lot in that space that we're working on right now.
Okay. Over to you, Stephan. You as a CEO of Unit4.
Well, you told me I need to be controversial.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say what we can start tomorrow. I think, and this became to me quite obvious on your presentation on these metrics, like current importance of role and expected future change. And I realized that there was a lot of dots in the upper right quadrant, and that means there is a lot of stuff in the invest and in the start and in the accelerate. But I'm questioning, what are we stopping? What are we not doing anymore?
True.
Because I think it's also quite obvious to me, and that's a challenge that I'm faced with as a CEO, and that's a challenge that I'm faced with as a technology vendor, that you can't just keep on piling up stuff. You need to be able to digest it. Your customers need to be able to digest it, and in some areas you need to say that's something we don't do anymore, in order to do something new and something different. And I guess that deselection process is quite a challenging one. So
It is a massive problem. I imagine every business out here has the same question. I know in our place, you could have a project list of 120 things. I think something about stopping or knowing what to stop is hugely important in terms of being very clear about what's going to matter as you deal with disruption and change.
Yeah, at the end, it's about the impact you can make.
Well, but I guess some of the stats you showed were quite well, concerning or encouraging. How many companies get just disrupted and sort of vaporized or become obsolete, and they become obsolete by companies that have accepted that some present realities or past realities are no realities of the future anymore. And I see it on our side. I mean, our traditional business model, I said it, is coming to an end, and there is a new business model evolving. So when do we have the courage to say goodbye to some stuff that is just not going to be there anymore in the future? Yeah. And how long do we hold back on it, right?
Yeah, that's honestly a great question, actually, because we all the time actually talk about what is it that you really need to do, but we don't talk so much about what is it that you need to stop doing. I think that's a fantastic question. I was just thinking as you were talking, not that I wasn't actually listening to you, but my brain was processing. So the first thing that will come to mind if I had to pick one is something that I will stop or urge you all to stop. It will be complacency. It's like, look, we really need to understand that there are certain things that we are not doing properly, or that we might be growing. When I started with those questions before, it's like maybe some of you are still growing, maybe your market share is great, and so on, but you can't keep up just thinking that that's going to continue to happen in the future, because things are changing. So complacency is your worst enemy there.
One of the things about stopping, I mean, last year we were on stage together with your colleague Evan, and that presentation was about the transformation that New Zealand Post has gone through, the 6 distribution centers to 3, all the local places. I mean, I think it was 50% decline of that because you closed the shops. 6 days delivery of postcards and post per week to 3 days. I mean, that's of course a lot of impact on the people that are on the receiving end. But you mentioned something yesterday about the experience you want to get to turn that around. And
yeah, that's correct. That this balance between how do you right-size a business as well as grow a business, and I think we all know you cannot shrink a business to success either, so you've got to get both working. Part of that strategy was clearly, I think I mentioned yesterday, our mail decline every year is around about 10%. So 5 or 6 years ago, there were 1.2 billion units going through our mail service. It's down to about 600 million, 650 million. It's going to be less than 600 million next year. Every year, that's taking $30 million out of our business. So for us to stand still, we're having to find $30 million of something else, and cost cutting won't get us there. So one of the experiences we're working hard on, and I must say Singapore Post has been doing some very good work in this space as well, but it's starting to give customer certainty and getting the customer experience much better in terms of their receiving experience of parcels and goods. So if people want it on a Saturday, all their parcels on a Saturday, we should be able to respond to that. If they want it at a different location, workplace, anywhere else they want to put it, we should have real-time ability to engage with those customers. So we're doing that now, and we're starting to build on that. And we've got an advertising campaign out there at the moment called You Can. That You Can is part of that story about giving the customer the power.
Yeah, exactly. So, America, I haven't got the slide on there, but the next slide that I wanted to, or the next question I wanted to highlight is the following one. So if you would prioritize the focus for your investment, what would you invest it in? Is it going to be projects that save money or projects that actually make money? I think let's move to you first.
I might have touched on some of it. They're both very important for us at the moment. One other thing we've done also to give us capacity is we have divested non-core business. So in the last 2 years, we've released about $300 million worth of businesses or assets, and that's now giving us options now to decide where we should invest. So we are investing to save money. You talked about the reduction in service frequency. But we're also investing in sorting technology and delivery technology, and that is actually going to come back into the growth story. So how do we make it very easy in terms of a very good and efficient delivery service? The sorting of our product is much, much quicker. So we see them both providing a customer solution as well as saving money for us. So we're always working on that balance.
Okay. Daniel, what do you see from your research? Is there a clear divide here in terms of how the money is spent?
I think that, as you were saying, David, they go hand in hand, actually. They are, those things are critical. Having said that, what I tend to see in the region, as I mentioned earlier, top priorities, actually, you saw that in the chart. What we see is that the top priority here in Asia Pacific is all about productivity and efficiency gains, right? So that's your priority in order to drive the transformation forward. Now, the question is, to me at least, and perhaps you guys can share your views, because I think that is a very important question today. Really, what is it to be productive today? Again, I've seen some of your views, but in my opinion at least, and this is what I see talking to many organizations, is that the productivity measures that we saw in the past don't generally apply today. It's like when you really think about what is it to be productive, or what is it that was being productive in the past, those things are changing. So I think that when companies today are saying that they want to actually focus on productivity, they are thinking about transforming the way they even look at the workforce, in the sense of, if we are looking at driving innovation, right, which is the top priority from a CEO perspective in the organization, then we need to rethink productivity as well. How do we measure that, right? So do you measure, again, your employees just on the outputs that they deliver, or do you measure your employee when he's more innovative on delivering those outputs? Hence, productivity in the traditional sense is probably declining, but it's declining because the measures are slightly different today. So perhaps we should really rethink the whole productivity bit and think, and again, back to your question, I think that most companies are focused today on productivity because they are really trying to transform the whole workforce and the way they look at things, and that's a top priority.
So how is that for you, Stephan?
Well, I mean, you know my definition of management, right? It's parallelly following conflicting objectives. If you only follow one objective, it's not management, it's simple execution. So I don't think that I can separate and save or make money, because it always goes hand in hand. I think, when I was listening to the speeches, what I thought about is like, what I think we need to identify as leaders, as managers in organizations, is, are we rather in an upward spiral or in a downward spiral? And it's actually quite easy to come into a downward spiral. What I mean with this is, for example, you put technology in place and you identify deficits in your processes. And in order to compensate for these deficits in technology and in your processes, you put more technology in place. And actually the energy of the people always goes more narrow down to a problem, rather than thinking big and making sure that the productivity of the people can increase because the basis for it is there. So it's not only about freeing up time to focus on all the stuff, it's also making more people participate in the business processes, easing the access to technology for people, because that will ultimately contribute to data quality, for example, in applications. And applications are networks, and there is this value equation of networks, that the value increases disproportionately with the number of participants in the network. Was it Moore's law, I guess, or something like that? This is, you guys talk about these laws. And I think we need to accept that making technology available for many people, easy, everywhere, at any time, in ways that we can consume technology in a consumer-like experience, is not only helping this individual to free up time, it's also helping the overall organization to further benefit from it. And that's what I mean with an upward spiral, making sure that we create the foundation for the productivity gains. And it will ultimately contribute to both. It's saving money and making money. They go hand in hand. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, well, at the end, I agree with that as well. Sometimes it's a difference from vertical to vertical, but I agree with you as well. You can only cut so much. and at some point in time you have to move on. I'm not sure how we're doing time-wise.
I think we have 5 minutes.
5 minutes
or so.
more,
Yeah.
then we can have one more
There is-
question.
Look there.
All right.
Oh, he's not going to show it to us now.
So now, we've started today. We have invested in saving projects and in projects that make money. Now we're getting the results out of it. We're getting these productivity gains. What do we do with that? Improvement of profitability or improvement of further accelerating growth?
Again, there's a great balance in the question. An example of what we're doing is we're thinking about people productivity. We know that digital solutions are coming in and many customers are adopting it, but there is a big customer base out there that aren't confident in using it yet.
True.
Something that we're doing in terms of using people's capacity is in our call centres in the bank, we're actually asking them to have a conversation with the customer as opposed to they're always measured on how fast they could get a call closed and move to the next call. So we'll give them a bit of freedom to spend some time talking to the customer about why they've called, what they could do differently. In some cases, 5-10 minute conversations. And what they're seeing is those customers don't need to call back again. They're now using their phone apps, they're now using their online solutions. So there's something in that productivity. If you can create capacity, you can create a new experience for customers, and that can also help you migrate to channel or create greater value in your business as well. So it's a bit of a mixed answer as well.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And it's funny that technology has actually prevented us from talking to the customer, and now it's coming back, and that has a great impact. Do you see that as well?
I think that he was right. What I tend to see is two waves, really, and that's the nature of the maturity of the market, actually. So when you think about what is different today and what are companies doing with that money that they potentially get, reinvest or not, what I tend to see is that a lot of organizations are really looking at, first they look inside, right? So how can I become more effective at doing things, right? How do I make my people more productive? That's the first thing that you think of, right, from a digital transformation perspective. But that, to me, actually is a reflection of the maturity again. So if you were to compare digital transformation to business transformation, which is something, I wouldn't say of the past, but something that we've seen before, business transformation is all about automation and efficiency, whereas digital transformation is all about expansion. It's all about the customer. It's all about the blend of different technologies. It's all about IT and OT together, mashing up those two. And OT, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, what I mean by that is operation technologies. Operation technology, when we look at digital transformation, is actually IT becomes the business. So what you're selling is not a product, you are selling technology. So essentially the product actually becomes a technology component. Think about self-driving cars. So essentially, when you think about a self-driving vehicle, that isn't actually a car anymore. It's not a damn vehicle. It's actually a smart mobility platform. So you are selling technology at the end of the day, right? So IT, OT is the mix of the two. And by the way, if you connect that to the ecosystem, essentially when you're driving your car, the car with those beautiful assistants that you were showing, will tell you, you want to go to that hotel that you generally go to when you are in this point? How about your expenses? You want to do that? So essentially becomes a connected thing as well, right? Sure. Part of the ecosystem. But again, back to your question, I think that the most important thing is that what we are seeing today that is different is that first, companies are focused inwards, so they are reinvesting essentially in the internal bit, but then second wave is all about that expansion, it's all about the customer. That's why I agree with you on that. Customer experience is the critical thing.
Is there one thing you want to say about customer experience? Because I mean, that's also something that we have, what I've seen in the last 2 years within Unit4, all the various silos of the company before have now all been aligned in order to create an end-to-end customer experience.
Yeah, I think this pay per laugh
fantastic
example. This is I just looked it up on YouTube, and I was a bit embarrassed that it apparently was already published 2 years ago, and I didn't see it. But that is the best and most tangible example for where the economy is heading.
Yeah.
and it's a reality. It's just either we face it, or the reality will face us at some point in time. And I know, I don't know in which situation and position I would want to be. And it's time to look at the customer experience in this way. That's it. Yeah.
True. I think that should conclude the panel for discussion for now. Stop, indeed. Is it now break? Very good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, panel. And thank you, Ton, for moderating. Many thanks again to Stephan, David, and Daniel.